audience now. I'm going to talk about Encointer, which is a proof-of-personhood protocol. A little bit about myself. My background is engineering. I'm in crypto since quite a long time, around a decade. This project basically emerged through frustration with what was going on in crypto. So on a social level, on a governance level, I was just not happy with the accumulation of power through capital. So the idea was, how can we make that different? And so this talk will be about that, but also a bit about our field experiment here in Zurich. So there is a local community currency here in Zurich, and I will share a few results from that community over the last 2 years. What's the current situation we're in? With respect to that project, we have 1.5 billion adults who are unbanked in the world. I guess this is not exactly news, but still this is a significant fact about financial inclusion, about possibilities of humans to participate in online and financial life. And over 800 million don't even have an official ID. So the problem with that is if you don't have an ID, it will be very hard to participate in the online society very often. And still, those people may have skills which are just not used because of those facts. So we would benefit if we could include more people. We will be able to develop more interesting stuff. And so crypto comes to the rescue, we could think. Well, at today's status, I very much doubt that, because if you look at the last time, like Ethereum transaction fees actually soared because there was a shortage of resources. If you compare that to the daily income of the world's population, you see that about 80% earn less per day than you paid for an ERC20 token transfer. Well, now you can say, okay, well, this is mainnet. We now have those nice sidechains. Well, apart from the fact that they have issues of their own, I think the problem, if you don't have an ID, how are you getting hold of crypto in the first place? Because nowadays, it's still basically centralized exchanges which make you do KYC, and how do you do KYC if you don't have an identity document? So we need a different way to onboard humans to the crypto space. And there is kind of so much of the world's population who just cannot, because of all those properties, participate now. So here is what Encointer aims to do. Encointer lets you create local communities where the fact that you are a human is sufficient to get a basic income in that community currency. And that income will be distributed regularly, and it will, for one, give you access to the crypto world, and two, it will even give you purchasing power inside your community, and through that reduce inequality. How does it work? We leverage the fact that one person can only be in one place at one time. Now, you may have heard the talk of Idena before, where they use reverse Turing tests to achieve the same. We ask people to actually gather physically in person every 10 days. So the way it works is you download the app, you register for the next cycle, and then you get assigned randomly. So you say, I want to join the Zurich LOI community, and there are defined public meetup places, and you will be assigned randomly to one, and then you will meet up to 15 people who mutually attest each other's personhood, all at the same time, so you cannot attend 2 of those meetups. And if you pass those cycle gatherings, you will be issued 44 LOI in that case. So in Zurich, the buying power of LOI is at par with Swiss francs. So it is, I'm not saying it's a lot of money, but it's still kind of in a way significant, so you can actually purchase something. And I will get more into like how that worked in Zurich later. Now, there's a fundamental problem with what I told you until now. If we just issue fresh money every 10 days, it will never end. You will just inflate money supply. And the more you inflate, the more money that's already issued, the lower the percentage of the basic income, which is issued. So actually, you reduce the relevance of the basic income over time, and we don't want to do that. So we have a balancing force built in, and that's demurrage. That's not a new concept. It was introduced by Silvio Gesell. You can also understand it as a negative interest. So the idea is we have exponential decay on your balance. So if you check your balance today and tomorrow the number will be smaller. And the idea is we take away the money where it isn't used, so where it is lying around in your wallet, and we inject it again into the community on an egalitarian basis. So it's kind of an issue and burn, which will find an equilibrium over time. So if you have a steady, so we have a simulation here of a steady community of 10,000 people, and you issue money, and at some point, the amount burned will equal the amount issued. And so you have a money supply which is more or less breathing with the size of the population. Now, why is that cool for Web3? I mean, local communities are nothing so new. They have been around and tested since multiple decades, more or less successfully. So one fundamental problem in Web3 is Sybil resilience. So if you want to find some kind of democracy in Web3, then Sybil resilience is what you're looking after. And I will go a bit into the detail how we imagine democracy to happen, actually. And also for Web3, that's the story of the beginning, it will be more inclusive. So we can actually onboard people into Web3 who couldn't afford an investment, who don't have spare money that they can just speculatively invest. So where are we with the Encointer ecosystem? We have 3 live communities right now. The one in Zurich, LOI, which I will tell more about, one in Tanzania, the Nyota, and one in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and a couple more which are in the conceptual phase. So let me tell you a bit more about LOI itself. So we have now 2 years experience with that field experience, and I just want to share a few, well, achievements, but also a few very skeptical remarks about it. So what you see here is the number of reputables, and reputables are people who attended at least once during the last 50 days. So on a rolling window basis, this is just a measure of how many people have attested personhood at least once out of 5 cycles. So we started pretty well in the beginning. That's more or less the friends and family effect. They couldn't say no because they know me and they do me a favor and they come and try it out, right? So the start is no big surprise. Then very early on, we were featured in the most read local newspaper in Zurich, and unfortunately, we couldn't really translate that to the growth of the community because we had a few technical issues. That's kind of, yeah, early days. But still, we were like, people started to ask and know, oh, Loy, yeah, I've heard about that. And then we had a phase of continuous growth. We even had a billboard campaign where we tried to reach a broad audience. And then something seems to have happened here, April last year. The participation went down. And so, first of all, let's look at the numbers that we have. So at peak, we had 155 reputables, and we had 400 people which have at least 5 LOI. So I would say the community size is 500 here 400, sorry, here in Zurich. But once we reached that peak, we couldn't turn that downturn. And interestingly here, well, I will bear with me for 2 more slides. I will disclose the riddle or our interpretation of it. So first, the success. So what have we actually achieved here? We have, when we started, people told us, well, you know, people will never take the time to come and attend to those physical in-person events. They don't have the time for that. They don't care. And, well, actually, now we can say, no, that's not true. If the incentive is right, if the story is right, not only the financial incentive, if the story is right, people will come. They will show up, and not only once. So this is the attendance frequency. So so on the left, you have the ones who attend more often. On the left, the ones who attend less. And we have 50% of the people, on average over 2 years, attended at least 1 of 5 cycles. And this, I would say, is quite a success so far, because we can say, hey, maybe 20% attended only once, another 40%, well, they loosely try it every now and then, but it is possible to build a community with this system. So now let's look at the economical side, which will give us a hint on why the numbers went down. So this is the total turnover of LOI during 2 years. So the numbers in the crypto space will not be super impressive. So that's really 43,000 Swiss francs worth of retail turnover here. Retail is people who we don't identify as businesses offering services and products. CII is community-issued income. That's the basic income. And B2B, obviously, is one acceptance point that pays another acceptance point. And now you quickly see the problem. The 2 sides are not balanced. So on the left is the money coming in, on the right is the money going out. So half of the LOI were stuck on the balance sheet of the acceptance points. And you see there is very little B2B. So B2B would be what closes the economic circles and makes the money turn constantly, which would actually make the story work economically for the businesses. because it would increase their revenue and so on. It would be positive for their business. You see, demurrage is actually an effect that also is a cost for the acceptance points when the money lies around. That's to be expected. And this led to the early adopter acceptance points to change their policy. So let me first tell you how many acceptance points we had. We started with one that was Sphere, was a popular cafe here in Zurich. Then came a gourmet grocery store, Berguntal. And then it grew, so we were able to find over 30 acceptance points where you could come and pay with LOI. But the difference here is there were two, the ones that I mentioned were the two most popular ones, and the others were more or less negligible. And in April, so where you see the numbers go down and where our trend was downwards, they decided to no longer accept LOI for 100% of their offering, but you had to pay 50% in Swiss francs, or you could only pay drinks and not food with it. And that seems to be the effect which just led to a decrease in participation. So this is no, I mean, it's, if you look at it in hindsight, this is no surprise. It's just less attractive to participate, so participation goes down. So we need a different narrative now. Either we find more popular acceptance points, or there must be a different reason why you participate. So just having more acceptance points will not help. It was 2 acceptance points deciding the story here in Zurich, and the other 28 were more or less, I mean, they were important for the community. I don't want to discount on their importance. It's just for the economy, it was not really significant. So luckily, we have a different dynamic right now in Africa. In Tanzania, a community has started. It's still very small, but they have different narratives. So with mobile money there, they pay excessive fees to just move money around. It's very easy, very convenient, but it's quite expensive. It's up to like 5% in fees. So they have a different narrative why a local community currency can be very interesting. And we are very keen to see how that moves on, and we will support them as well as we can. But now to the democracy considerations. So Web3 so far is basically a plutocracy. So you have token voting, who has more money has more say. So that's, I think we need to more or less accept that. Now, is there a way how we can balance money, wealth with personhood? Don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying one person, one vote is a sound choice for Web3 governance. I think it isn't. Doesn't make sense because who should be in the set? And what are the requirements to join that set of voters in Web3? It kind of doesn't really make sense. You need to have some kind of either reputation or kind of skin in the game of some kind, or you need to have some attachment to what you are governing. And I mean, you might have heard the talk from Idena, where those problems have been very nicely described. So what do we have in mind here? First of all, let's start on the top level. Our goal is subsidiary governance, subsidiary democracy. But we are a parachain on Kusama, which is the canary net of Polkadot, which is a plutocratic system, basically, with a few countermeasures. But we are granted free core time, so we don't pay gas. You know, that's also why we couldn't build that on Ethereum. Circle's UBI tried that, but they had to subsidize gas in order to do so. So we have a slot on Kusama always for a year, and then we get it for another year. And then we have free execution time. But that comes with a cost. now we are subject for protocol governance to a token voting system. So if we want to change the protocol, we need to go through Kusama governance. So that's just to get that out of the picture. Then we go to the intermediate level, which is protocol parameters. Someone has to say, it's every 10 days that people have to meet concurrently. Other rules of the protocol. And this currently is a council of 7 people, but the goal obviously is subsidiary democracy, that we can say all communities together will govern those parameters. And to get more practical, here is what we have built, where we have a prototype, which we are trying on our testnet now, and that's community-level governance. So here the idea is the following. It's only an approximation of one person, one vote, to be honest. What we do is every cycle attendance is one vote. So if every cycle attendance within the last 5 cycles. So if you took the time to attend 5 times, you have 5 votes. And anyway, here you can, for example, vote on how high should the basic income be? Is it 44 loi? Is it 88? Is it 88,000? The demurrage is the halving time, 1 year, 7 years, whatever. So we intend to roll that out and test it in the field with real people, possibly with liquid democracy in the sense of delegating your vote. Because we can simply not assume that people have the necessary knowledge about those parameters. So, but at least they should have a say in who they trust to understand those parameters. I don't have the time to go too deep because democracy is also about this like debate, talking to each other, social media. So our proof of personhood can also give you a personhood badge. Here on Noster, we demonstrated that, this badge, you can only have this badge on one account, so you cannot maintain many accounts with this badge. But you can look it up if that's of interest to you. But I'd like to leave to some time for questions at least. Thank you.
Wow, let's give a round of applause. Thank you so much. I enjoyed that I can delegate my vote, for example. That's a liquid voting. And also the more I participate, the more voting power I get. I love it.
Limited,
but of course, but still, you know, I'm very active.
Yeah.
Lovely, but please, the questions from the audience. Wonderful, we have there one.
Thanks for the presentation. Very interesting. I know the system a bit. I also participated a few times. But I also saw the presentation from Aidena before, and I was just wondering whether you, because they showed, as far as I understood, that some pools were forming, so maybe undermining this concept of digital personhood. Did you see anything similar? For example, that people gave their phones to other people to bring it to these gatherings or something like this in the system?
No, we didn't. And I would expect that we, for a long time, will not see that. But I may be wrong. The difference here is the reward that you get in Aidena is something which you can trade globally and speculate on it. So it's a reward which cannot account for purchasing power or wage levels of different countries. However, we might see the same if you have very high inequality within your community. Because if some people work for $100 per hour and other people work for $1 an hour, then you have exactly the same problem. And you will see puppeteering also in Encointer, I'm sure.
Yes, we have one more question. Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. So I was just wondering, like these community-driven projects, it's very interesting to see that unfold as well for this subject. And like you say, I can imagine as well that many of the people directly affected by what you want to do are not knowledgeable enough. So I'm just wondering, I work a lot on sort of the election process in the real world, like combined with our democratic rights of electing and so on. And I guess we see that even that often goes a little bit in the wrong direction in terms of what you said, like I want to give my vote to someone I trust to know better, but that trust is often based on maybe a loud shouting person. And these are people who don't know, so they don't know exactly what they're looking for. So I'm wondering if you are also spending a substantial amount of time and sort of maybe the community in this to figure out other ways of empowering people without letting them have to build that trust on something they don't know, and avoiding the risk of falling for the shouting individual that might have like individual interests.
Well, I'm not sure if I entirely get your question, but if I find, so how I understand it is, are there alternatives to token voting or kind of delegating your personhood vote?
Yeah, other characteristics, other mechanisms that you can use to choose, other than I give you my valuable vote because I trust you, because that trust is not defined.
Yes. So, I mean, right now, the trust is in us. Right now, it's in that sense autocratic to the team who builds the system, because people just trust us because it's an experiment, right? Now, this is not how we want to do it. And then we could weigh in how many lawyers someone has, because that is skin in the game. That would be especially interesting for acceptance points, because the problem of businesses is they are not persons. They don't get a vote even if they don't send someone to participate. That's a problem. Or you really, yeah, do kind of the liquid democracy thing, where maybe some votes will be delegated to the acceptance points or to a consortium of acceptance points. But if you ask, can we avoid that delegation, or, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd be very curious to learn more options. What we did in practice is just we held meetups where we explained as well. So education, I think, is key, so that people might delegate less and execute their voting power rather themselves, because they have been educated. So I think I'm open to suggestions if you have concrete.
I like it a lot. Less delegate, more take action, responsibility for your own voting. I like this one. Thank you so much. This was a wonderful ending. So let's create more systems that each and every person can vote themselves. Thank you so much. And we're open to coffee break. And then